Imagine going on a cruise with your family only to end up on the FBI's most wanted missing persons list. This was the fate of a young girl named Amy Lynn Bradley when she went on a holiday family vacation. Amy had just graduated and boarded the Royal Caribbean's Rhapsody of the Seas cruise with her parents and her brother Brad in March of 1998. The family was having a great time together, enjoying all the ship's amenities, and Amy even became friends with the ship's band, the Blue Orchid. On the night of March 23rd, Amy and her brother partied in the ship's club. Amy danced and chatted with the bass player, Yellow, aka Alistair Douglas. Around 1 a.m., the siblings called it a night and returned to their family's cabin together. This would be the last time that Brad ever saw his sister. A few hours later, at 5:30 in the morning, Ron Bradley, Amy's father, saw her on the deck of their family's stateroom lounging peacefully. All seemed well, but 30 minutes later, when he looked again, Amy had vanished. Ron assumed Amy went back to sleep in her bedroom, but when he checked, she wasn't there either. Ron went and checked the ship's common areas, but couldn't find Amy, and the family started to worry. They begged the cruise ship staff to cancel docking at Curacao, but were ignored. Both 2,400 passengers and 765 crew members were allowed off the ship. As the Bradley family continued to desperately search for Amy, the ship's staff remained unhelpful. They didn't want to announce her disappearance or hang photos of her around the vessel, afraid it might upset the other passengers, and they only searched common areas, not staff or passenger cabins. It was possible that Amy might have fallen overboard, but extremely unlikely because she was a trained lifeguard and experienced avid swimmer. That's when her family recalled how Amy was receiving a lot of special attention from the ship's crew. A waiter had asked Amy out to a restaurant called Carlos and Charlie's during the ship's dock to Aruba. However, Amy had rejected this offer and stated how the crew members gave her the creeps. She wasn't wrong to feel this way, as it just so happens another young American woman had disappeared shortly after being seen at that same restaurant in Aruba. The Bradley family did everything in their power to find Amy, but it was like she vanished completely and all the leads went cold. However, the Bradley family never gave up and were hopeful when multiple people in the Caribbean claimed to have seen their daughter over the years. Just 5 months after her disappearance, 2 Canadian tourists spotted a woman who matched Amy's description on the beach with the exact same tattoos as Amy. These tattoos were pretty specific, such as a Tasmanian devil with a basketball on her shoulder, a sun on her lower back, a lizard on her stomach, and a Chinese symbol on her left ankle. She was accompanied by 2 men, and she tried to say something, but the man gestured her away. One of the tourists believes 100% that it was her. The following year, a woman comes forward saying that she's Amy Lynn Bradley at a brothel in Curacao. Crime Fanatic Friday Part 2, The Girl Who Disappeared from a Cruise Ship. 1 year after Amy Lynn Bradley's disappearance in 1999, a member of the Navy was in a brothel in Curacao when a woman came up to him and told him that she's Amy Lynn Bradley. She begged for his help, but he didn't report it because he didn't want to get in trouble. The officer stayed quiet until after his retirement when he saw Amy's face on People magazine, but by then she was long gone. That same year, the Bradley family gained a tremendous amount of hope when a man named Frank Jones, claiming to be a former U.S. Army Special Forces officer, contacted them. He stated that he knew exactly where Amy was and he could rescue her from the armed Colombians holding her in Curacao. Jones even had a witness statement from a cook who told the family that Amy was being held in a complex protected with barbed wire. The cook described Amy's tattoos and even hummed a lullaby that Amy's mom used to sing to her daughter when she was a baby. However, this all later turned out to be a complete fraud. Jones managed to scam the Bradleys out of over $200,000 with his charade of getting their daughter back. It turns out that all the evidence he showed them was made up, leaving the Bradleys back at square one. However, the sightings of Amy didn't stop. In 2005, the Bradleys received an email with a picture of a woman who appeared to be Amy, lying on a bed in her underwear. A member of an organization that locates sex trafficking victims on adult websites noticed the photo and thought it was Amy. She was identified as a woman named Jazz, a sex worker in the Caribbean. Unfortunately, this clue never generated new leads, and to this day, Amy Lynn Bradley remains missing. She continues to be listed on the FBI's most wanted missing persons list. Her family, however, has never given up hope and have offered sizable rewards and information on her whereabouts.
I, 22 male, just learned that my sister, 29 female, had an abortion to be able to donate me part of her liver. It caused her divorce, and I can't stop hating myself. I was very sick 4 years ago and was in need of a liver transplant. My situation was that it was very unlikely that I would get one in time. At that time, my sister was pregnant. I didn't know as it was early and she was only 2 months. My situation was getting worse and my sister decided to have an abortion, and then 2 months later we did the transplant surgery. Oh my god, what a nice sister. I never knew about the pregnancy. All I knew was that she gave me half of the liver. My sister and her husband divorced a year later. I didn't know the truth until yesterday when my mom slipped up about the abortion that my sister had. I asked her about it and she told me everything. She told me that my sister made her promise not to tell me and she failed that promise. My sister was very happy. My brother-in-law was a very decent guy. I knew they were looking forward to having children. They were great together. She always told us about how lucky she is to have found him. Apparently, at the time of their decision, my sister and her husband had great disagreement. He didn't want her to have the abortion and risk the transplant surgery and was hopeful that my situation might sort itself out without my sister's help. The chance was very small, but it was there. My sister didn't agree. They couldn't convince one another, and my sister did things anyway without his blessing. They tried working things out after the surgery. They went to counseling. They even tried to have another baby, but they couldn't get themselves to do it. He couldn't forgive my sister, and she wasn't all that apologetic, so they ended up separating and eventually divorcing. I asked my mom if my sister still thinks that she did the right thing, and she said she's not sure. I can't stop feeling guilty. My sister saved my life, but destroyed her own life by doing it. She had to abort the baby she definitely loved and looked forward to, and did that knowing that it will probably end her marriage as well. I was ready to go at that time. I had accepted my fate and I was at peace. She should have just let me. My brother-in-law should have told me, so I would have talked her out of it. I'm surprised he didn't, and I can't feel anything but hate for myself. I don't know what to do. Should I talk to my sister? What should I tell her? Should I keep my mouth shut and pretend that I don't know? I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to look into her eyes and not show that I know. I just don't know what to do. Please, please help me.
Every Christmas, I used to get a seasonal job in Toronto, which is when you just get to work somewhere completely fucking random for the month of December. Back in the day when I started doing this, you got to make $12 an hour, which was fucking lit. I'd share with you and then rate these jobs. Sorry, these are from Instagram in 2012. This is when I worked at Whole Foods in Yorkville. This chick is a mother now. Chill in like a Santa's workshop gift basket office that was full of cookies and fucking charcuterie shit, and then put it in baskets and tie bows. And then we just had a certain amount of orders we had to do for the day, and then we would just put them aside and eat so much shit. Like the amount of shit we stole from Whole Foods was a little bit criminal. Any amount is criminal, but ho ho ho, fuck you. This wasn't my favorite. This was when I was working at Bloor Street Market as a deli girl who sliced cheese. I didn't pick well with this one because Bloor Street Market was right next to U of T where I went to university, and people would like go grocery shopping there and see me in class, and then all of a sudden see me wearing a hairnet, slicing cheese and measuring salami and shit. So let's forget this one. This one was good. The body shop was jokes. All we did, just learn smells. And we just sold body butter. You remember body butter? And we got to wear these little shirts that said give joy. Oh. Store discount, everybody got body butter for Christmas that year. Oddly enough, this location closed a week after Christmas. Get ready for my favorite. Okay. I sold teddy bears at the Toronto Christmas market when I was 23 years old. The hourly for this one was actually like 17 bucks an hour or something. It was legit. However, unfortunately, this job drove me to insanity because over here we sold this thing that was like an edible Christmas card for dogs. Everybody would come over and go, oh my God. Cheryl, come here, look at this. It's an edible Christmas for dogs. Stop. Should we get one for Peanut? And they'd look at me and go, what's it made of? And I'd go, rawhide. This is before I had a dog, so I like had no fucking clue. I was like, dog people are fucked. This card is lame. My first boyfriend had dumped me the year before, and his mom came and was like, hi, Sam. And I was like, why am I here selling fucking teddy bears? There was one heater in the hut and it was next to my shins, so I got eczema on my shin. There was a guy next to my hut that was selling donuts, and literally every 20 seconds he'd go, Feliz Navi donut. Funnily enough, this is probably my favorite one because look how fucking jokes that is. I'm gonna leave you with this. This is my first ID card when I started working at Scotiabank Arena when I was 18. Okay? Now I'm 29. So I'm more beautiful now, I think we can all agree, and that is my Christmas gift to me and to you. Merry Christmas.
So I have started a series called It's My Story series where people submit their stories in hopes to let out their secrets, hoping that they can get advice, a shoulder to lean on. And for a lot of people, it's a form of therapy. So if you have a deep story you want to tell us, go to my Instagram, xrosebeauty, and submit your story. This story is very deep. Viewer discretion is advised. This young lady is a Muslim, and they hold women in a very high standard. Their virginity is very important to them. Women get killed if they lose their virginity before marriage. That's how bad it is at times. But unfortunately, somebody in her family took that from her at a very, very young age, and it traumatized her to the point where she has thoughts of ending it all once and for all because she just doesn't know how to process this situation. This family member that did this to her took so much from her. She's terrified because something like this brings dishonor to the family, to the point where the family can disown you or end your life. She's scared that if she tells her family what this person did to her, they won't believe her. And the sad truth is that so many women go through this. She is looking for words of encouragement and advice.
Storytime about how I beat up my stalker of 4 years. When I was 18, I booked a major campaign. I started modeling at the age of 10, and it was a really big deal for me. This happened in a country where women are not treated very well. When my campaign came out, there were billboards of me everywhere in the city. My face was plastered on the internet and on social media too. Now from this, my Instagram grew a lot. Overnight, I went from having 6,000 followers to 40,000 followers. So by the end of the week, I had almost 100,000 followers. Again, this was a huge deal for me, and I was really, really happy about it. But things started getting really weird when I started checking my DMs. I had about 40 DMs from one guy alone. The rest of the DMs were thirst traps, but this guy was different. He was becoming obsessive literally overnight. Every other message was about how beautiful I was and how he wanted to marry me. Instead of replying, I decided to ignore his messages. From this campaign, I started getting even more modeling jobs, and I also started getting paid to post stuff on Instagram. I was super happy. When I checked my DMs again, I noticed that he was messaging me even more. Once again, I ignored every single one of his messages. But after 4 days, he started getting really angry. Started commenting bitch on all of my pictures. Got to the point where I had to tell my modeling agency, and they just told me to ignore him too. A few days later, I opened his DMs only to see a picture of my house. When I opened his DM, I saw that he sent me a picture of my own house, and this meant he knew where I lived. Once again, I told my modeling agency, and again, they told me to just ignore it. But it terrified me that he knew where I lived. Luckily, I lived in a really big apartment building, so I don't think he knew exactly what floor I lived on, but I took a chance and I sent him a message asking him politely to leave me alone. Believe it or not, this went on for 4 years. I would tell him to leave me alone and he would just come back with more things to say. During those 4 years, I did travel a lot for modeling, so it didn't bother me that much, not until I got pregnant. He actually sent me a picture of me pregnant. That's when he told me that I had betrayed him and that I was cheating on him. One day I'm at my apartment, and yes, I had already met a man at this time and we were engaged. My fiance was out at work. I decided to take some time off of modeling since I was pregnant. Suddenly, I get a knock on my door. I opened the door to a stranger I had never seen before. Obviously, at the time, I didn't know it was my stalker because I didn't know what he looked like. That's when he hands me a package and he tells me that I must have left it downstairs. I told him I hadn't ordered anything, and then he asked if he could come in. I said no, but he pushed his way in. When he grabbed my hand and started begging for forgiveness. And he confessed that he had been sending me the messages for 4 years. Started yelling at him to leave, but he wouldn't. He tried to kiss my pregnant belly and asked me if it was his son. And that's when I just started kicking and punching him. And I didn't stop until he was out the door. When I looked at his face, he was bleeding and scratched all over. Neighbor had come out and had already called the cops, thank God. Cops arrested him and he was taken away. They were only able to hold him for 2 weeks. Apparently he had not broken any laws. This man is out there free. What should I do?
Storytime when I accidentally called the police while I was handcuffed and being spanked by my husband. I'm a female BDSM practitioner. I enjoy it and I won't apologize for it. My husband often cuffs and whips me, and on Wednesday we had a pretty hardcore session. He put these big leather cuffs on me but failed to take off my Apple Watch. I didn't realize that if you hold the dial down, it automatically calls 911. So we get into it and he's spanking me and I'm pulling on my restraints, and the restraints hold on the button. He's smacking me pretty good, and suddenly I hear from my watch, "Ma'am, I hear what appears to be hitting and screaming. We are sending someone to you. Hold tight." "Did you call 911? My husband asked. "Tell them it was an accident." So I tell the operator that it was just an accident, and she says, "Is your name?" And I say, "Yes." And she says, "We have your address from our database and we're sending someone over now. I'm sorry, but we hear a male voice telling you what to say, and this sounds like coercion on our end, so we're obligated to make sure that you're safe." I said, "Okay, thank you," and I hung up. Shit, I'm literally covered in bruises and welts, and the police are coming to check on my well-being. Within a few minutes, there's a stern knock at the door. We put our clothes on and come to the door, and the police take my husband outside, separating us from communication. I calmly explained that it was an accident and we were just having really crazy sex. I didn't mention the spanking. Apparently, my husband did. Another police officer comes in and asks about our BDSM contract. "He told you about our contract?" The officer replied, "He felt it was best to come clean about your extracurricular activities tonight and thought that the contract would possibly show his state of mind." I get our contract and show it to the officers. After a mortifying few minutes explaining that he was only smacking my ass and thighs, they believe us and tell us to disable the 911 feature on the Apple Watch if we're going to do that again.
Am I wrong for telling a social worker the real reason my sister wants a foster kid? I, 28 female, have a sister who's 36. For the sake of the story, I'll just call her Jane. Jane is married to Bob and they have 2 kids, boy and a girl. My niece and nephew are wonderful kids and no trouble at all. They fight as siblings do, but nothing big. I love them. Now for about 2 years, I did live with my sister. It was a miserable time that really affected our relationship. She saw me as free labor, money, and babysitting. Even when I managed to get a small part-time job, she demanded I hand over nearly half my pay or get out. It was hell as she took complete advantage of me. I moved out as soon as I could, and we have little to no contact outside of family gatherings. Now, after I moved out, she started complaining how she has no help with the kids and never gets a break. I babysit sometimes, but I have made it clear just because I'm off work doesn't mean I want an 8-hour day with my niece and nephew. Anyway, she started talking about how she wanted to foster a kid. Not a kid, but a teenager. I pressed her for more info on this, and she said she wants to adopt a teenager so she has a live-in babysitter for her kids. This is her logic. I want a kid around 16 or 17, someone who may have been in the system for a while. They can share a bedroom with your nephew. She only has a 3-bedroom house, or sleep in the garage. They can help me with housework, chores, cook, and help me with my business. She bakes and sells cookies on the side. Also, babysit the kids so me and Bob can go out sometimes or have some time alone. They'll be so grateful for a home and won't complain. I won't have to pay them at all. And when they turn 18, I can just sign up for another foster kid. A teenager will be so much easier than a little kid, and they will be grateful just to have a roof, food, siblings if they have been separated from their real ones, and clothes. What the hell? How do people think of this shit? What am I reading? I was horrified and told her it was a horrible idea, but she didn't listen to me. She went on with it anyways. About a month ago, a social worker showed up at my apartment to ask me some questions about my sister. She had put me down as a character witness or something like that. I immediately told the social worker why my sister wanted to foster a kid and how she treated me when I lived with her. The lady then thanked me. My sister called crying, saying that she wouldn't be considered for any adoptions or fosters. The social worker told her that they thought her home and her weren't a good fit. She asked if I said anything, and I told the truth. She went off on me, hung up, and we haven't spoken since. A couple family members are on her side. They think foster kids are effing dogs or something and would be so happy just to have a roof and would gladly do all the housework. So am I wrong here? What? Ugh. Don't have kids if you can't take care of them. Like, it's not, you don't have to have kids if you have, what? People are fucking stupid.
Okay, spoiler alert, Sex and the City reboot. If you haven't seen it, keep scrolling. Or just never watch it and watch this instead. I could go on about this for 40 years, so I'm just gonna choose a few points, but by far the biggest disappointment is that this was initially a groundbreaking show about female empowerment. And Big, although we were rooting for him, was always the ultimate fuckboy, okay? So how come Big gets the best exit? He gets to live to redeem himself after 6 seasons of trash, then die in his glory on a Peloton. While Samantha, who served 6 seasons of fierce loyalty, doesn't get to die on top. Instead, her entire reputation, everything she stands for, gets reversed. She's so petty over a work argument she had with Carrie. That's what we're doing to her character after all that character did for us. And meanwhile, Big is like, you're shit, you're shit, you're shit, and then you're amazing, and you get to die at your best. Well, Samantha doesn't get to die at her best. They should have killed her. Instead of, if anybody was going to revert back to being a loser, wouldn't it be Big, who's reverted back to being a loser 8,000 times? Here's the biggest plot hole. We're supposed to believe that Samantha did not get on a plane to go to Big's funeral and instead just sent flowers. That's how mad she is that she's no longer Carrie's publicist. She won't even go to her husband's funeral. That's how strong their friendship was, that a little misunderstanding about work just fucking wiped out all that loyalty. So what's the upshot? Okay, Samantha's been a loser this whole time. And yeah, you can find happiness over 40, but it'll only last till you're 50. And all 6 seasons we watched was all for nothing because this guy just bites it on a Peloton in the end. And sorry, Carrie, that's not how we use and just like that. I can't believe I have to tell you this. We don't say things like, and just like that, Big died. No, we say, and just like that, I was dumped on a Post-it note. And just like that, I laughed all the way to the bank. We don't say, and just like that, world genocide. And just like that, Big died. No, that's not how we use them. I think we all agree. Like, we're just pretending this isn't. I hate when shows do this. Like, now I gotta watch season 1 knowing that these fucking dum-dums chose to make it season 1. Oh, who cares? She's not really your friend and he dies. We have to pretend this doesn't exist. We just have to. Fucking dumb. We were already short Samantha. Now we're short Willie Garson. And now you're killing off a third. Why? This is how you fuck up a legacy. All right, I'm done.
Storytime on how I caught my mom sleeping with her sister's husband, her brother-in-law. And this is a continuation of the storytime where my mom married my boyfriend. Okay, so boom. After my mom divorced my boyfriend for treating her horribly, trying to get back with me and cheating on her religiously, my mom got very depressed because me or my dad was not talking to her. The only person that was there for her was her sister, which is my aunt. My auntie had the biggest heart in the world. She was very forgiving. So even after my mom did what she did, my auntie still tried to play peacemaker. She tried to make me and my mom squash everything, but that wasn't about to happen because my mom slept, got pregnant, and married my boyfriend. I'm not forgiving anything. So because my mom was so sad and lonely, my auntie was going over there a lot more than usual just to be her support system. So of course, because my auntie was spending so much time there, her husband ended up helping my mom a lot too. And that was a big mistake. Like for part 2 on how I caught my mom sleeping with her sister's husband, her brother-in-law. And this is a continuation of the story time where my mom slept with my boyfriend. So like I said, my auntie had a big heart and was spending a lot of time with my mom because my mom had no one else. And since my auntie was spending a lot of time there, so was her husband. But there were times where my auntie couldn't see my mom because she was at work. So she sent her husband to just do a quick checkup and give her some of the food that my auntie cooked. For some reason, my auntie still trusted my mom, which is her little sister. I don't know why, but she did. Well, one day while my auntie was at work, my mom called her saying she was having a breakdown. So my auntie sent her husband to check on her and give her some food. But in actuality, what was really happening is that when my auntie went to work, my mom would call and fake like she's having a breakdown and she needs help, just so my auntie would send her husband to the rescue, and so that it wouldn't look suspicious while he was there. Well, their little sick plan didn't work this time. Like for part 3 on how I caught my mom sleeping with her sister's husband, her brother-in-law. And this is a continuation of the story time where my mom slept with my boyfriend. Like I said, my mom called my auntie acting like she was having a nervous breakdown, so my auntie sent her husband to check on her. But what they didn't know is that my auntie called me. My auntie basically called me because she really felt bad for my mom. She kept telling me to go check on her to make sure she's okay because she's going through a lot right now. She says she know what my mom did was wrong, but that I only have one mom, and if God forbid something happened, I wouldn't regret not talking to my mom. So I said, fine. I told my dad to drop me over to my mom's house. When I go over there, I used the keys that I still had, and then I looked all of downstairs. No one was downstairs, so I went upstairs. As soon as I got upstairs, I heard moaning. So I did what anybody would do. I immediately got suspicious and pulled out my phone to start recording. I slowly made it over to my mom's room and opened the door. And there it was, like like for part 4. Part 4 on how I caught my mom sleeping with her sister's husband, her brother-in-law. And this is a continuation of the story time where my mom married my boyfriend. So like I said, I pulled out my phone and started recording, and I walked over to my mom's room. I opened the door, and there it was. My mom was fully naked on the bed, and my auntie's husband's belt was unbuckled and his shirt was unbuttoned. He was on top of her kissing her, then jumped off and fell to the floor. He immediately yells, "It's not what it looks like." And I said, "Oh, shut up. I'm recording everything." The funny part is I wasn't even shocked. When I told him my dad was downstairs, he bolted out the room, ran to his car, and he left. I called my mom a stupid It wasn't kind words. And she was just there bawling her eyes out. I immediately sent the video to my auntie. And even though my auntie's husband said they never actually did the nasty because I stopped it before it happened, my auntie didn't care and divorced him because, like, he still tried. And my mom was left with nothing and no one except her 3 cats, as she deserves. Story time on how my babysitter used a teddy bear to spy on me while I changed. Okay, so boom. My parents worked a lot and they both worked night shifts. My dad would come home first at like 11 p.m. and then my mom would usually come around 1 a.m. My parents didn't want me to be home alone for too long, so I would have a babysitter from 3 when I would get out of school till 11 when my dad came home. By the way, I'm 12 and the babysitter that we're going to be talking about is 19. So I usually stayed with my older cousin till my dad came home, but my cousin and her family moved. So my parents were forced to get me an actual babysitter. So like a week into me dealing with this new babysitter, one night I was changing and my babysitter tried to open the door, but it was locked. I told her that I was changing, but she told me that I have to leave my door unlocked just in case something happens. I only believed her because my parents had a similar rule. But eventually, my babysitter was always walking into me accidentally while I changed. I was getting annoyed, so I had to think of something to stop her. Y'all, I'm running out of time. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how my babysitter used a teddy bear to spy on me while I changed. Okay, so boom, like I said, my babysitter kept accidentally walking in on me while I was changing. So to stop her, after I would get out the shower, I would literally go to her and say, "Hey, I'm in my room changing. I'll be right back. Please don't come in." So she had no choice but to stop accidentally seeing me. Well, that stopped her for a week, and then she got me a teddy bear. I was excited because it was a pretty big bear and it was super soft. She came in my room with me and said she got the perfect spot for the bear. And I was like, okay, cool. Y'all, she put it right on my dresser, front and center, great view to see everything. And ever since then, she never came back into my room. Y'all, the things I did in my room, like dancing with no clothes on, acting like I was Beyonce on stage, shaking my little booty with barely any clothes on. And little did I know she was downstairs watching the whole thing, cause the camera was in the teddy bear's eyes. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how my babysitter used the teddy bear to spy on me while I changed. Okay, so boom, like I said, she gave me a teddy bear with camera eyes and put it on my dresser. I, of course, didn't notice that there was actually cameras in the eyes of the teddy bear. Well, one day my mom was cleaning my room and she asked me where did I get this bear from. And I told her that my babysitter got it for me. And my mom was like, "Oh, okay." For some reason, my mom was creeped out about the bear and she ended up putting it in the washroom to clean it later. That same night, before I even got a hello, my babysitter said, "Why'd you move the bear?" And I looked at her and said, "How did you even know the bear was moved?" She kind of stumbled on her words, but then she told me that my mom told her. I obviously fell for it and was like, "Oh yeah, she put it in the washroom to clean later." Y'all, my babysitter went to the washroom and took the bear and she placed it back on the dresser at the same spot. And she told me to tell my mom that we washed the bear together. I really didn't care, so I was just like, yeah, sure, whatever. And I went about my day. This is where it gets real. Like for part 4. Part 4 on how my babysitter used the teddy bear to spy on me while I changed. Okay, so boom, like I said, after my mom moved the teddy bear, my babysitter went in and moved it back. The next day, it was Saturday, so my mom was off. My mom came in my room and saw the teddy bear and asked me why I brought it back up. So I said, "Honestly, Mom, the babysitter put it back up. She was so sad that she moved it. You should have never even told her." And my mom just looked at me confused and was like, "What do you mean?" I didn't tell her I moved the bear. And I said, "Of course you did, Mom. You probably just forgot." Because before she even walked through those doors, she asked me why I moved the bear. My mom's eyes opened wide and she froze. My mom took her phone out and opened a flash and shined it into the bear's eyes. And then she screamed, "Oh my gosh," and then grabbed the teddy bear and ran to her room. There the camera was. My mom called the cops and then the cops went to my babysitter's house like 15 minutes away. And my babysitter's parents, not knowing what's going on, let the cops in. Y'all, like for part 5. Part 5 on how my babysitter used the teddy bear to spy on me while I changed. Okay, so boom, like I said, my mom grabbed the teddy bear and ran to her room and called the cops. The cops went to my babysitter's house and her parents led them in. So the cops went into my babysitter's room and then confiscated the laptop. Y'all, she had videos of me and about 5 other girls that she babysat for. And she was recording all of us naked. and we're all minors. She, of course, went to jail, and my parents refused to hire anyone to babysit me anymore. They actually prefer a family member, or they just leave me home, to be honest. And my parents actually didn't tell me what happened until I got older, which I'm now 18, because they didn't want me to feel so violated, so they handled it all without me knowing, which I'm grateful for, because I probably would have had a mental breakdown if my mom really told me what happened at that very moment. So anyways, be careful who you leave alone with your kids, guys.
Story time about my worst trip off LSD. So one of the kids in my friend group was about to leave for Arizona, and we would always talk about how we need to trip together before he leaves. And anytime that I would trip off acid, I would go to my one plug. Well, he ran out, so we had to go to somebody else. And I've never tried this kid's stuff before, but I just said fuck it, YOLO, which should not have been my motto at the time. But it was. So that night, we're in the car, and one of our friends is driving because he's sober, obviously. And before I put the tab on my tongue, I started to get really nervous. And I have never felt like that before I've taken acid. But I kind of just said fuck it, and I put it on my tongue. So we go pick up 2 more people that I'm not really close with. So then we make our way over to our other friend's apartment. And I'm kind of feeling it, but not really. But then as soon as we walk into that apartment, I start tripping balls. And you know, everything was going good. But then my dumb ass decided to look in the fucking mirror. And as soon as I look in the mirror, I see myself smile back at me, like for part 2.
Story time on how I caught my sister giving my husband head, so I made both of them drink my pee. Okay, so a quick rundown. At this point, I was married to my husband for 2 years, but we've been together for 5. I obviously knew my sister my whole life, but she was always known to be easy or loose, if you catch my drift. Everyone in the family knew this, but we looked past her thoughtism. So anyways, it's Christmas Eve and we're having a family get together, so there's a lot of us there. And let me make this clear. Me and my sister were close and me and my husband were on great terms, so it's not like I could have seen this coming. So the Christmas Eve party started in the backyard so we can bring Christmas in together, and everything was pretty normal. I did see my sister being a little bit too friendly, a little bit too flirty, but I just thought that was her thoughtism coming out. I thought nothing of it. I didn't think they would stoop that low. Oh well, they stooped, bitch. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how I caught my sister giving my husband head, so I made both of them drink my pee. So like I said, the Christmas Eve party started and it was all fun and games until I realized my husband had been missing for 30 minutes. I didn't even realize my sister was gone. I just thought maybe he wasn't too comfortable around all of my family, so he went to the room. So I went looking for him. Well, he was more than just comfortable, bitch. I opened up that guest room we were staying at, and right there before my eyes, my sister on her knees with his peen in her mouth. They both looked up so shocked, and before they can even react, I ran over to her and grabbed her hair, threw her to the floor, turned around and slapped him. That's right, the almighty slap. Then I proceeded to stomp on my fucking sister. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how I caught my sister giving my husband head, so I made both of them drink my pee. So like I said, I was stomping my sister out. He tried to stop me, which pissed me off even more, so I turned around and kicked him in the balls. He fell to the floor and I stomped him a couple times too. At this point, my husband and my sister are both on the floor crying, asking me for forgiveness. I'm sorry. They weren't gonna be sorry if I never caught them. Y'all, I was so angry, I ran downstairs and I took the apple cider, went to the bathroom, and I pissed all in that fucking bottle. And it was a lot of pee, child. I went back to the room and opened her peen-sucking mouth and poured my piss all in there. And as she gagged, I ran to my husband and did the same. Everybody gets pee today. After part 4. Part 4, last part of how I caught my sister giving my husband's head, so I made the both of them drink my pee. So like I said, everybody gets pee. As my sister's gagging, I ran over to my husband, and as he's trying to say sorry, I opened up that mouth and put the rest of my jizz in there. I was so angry I couldn't stop. I told them both that I cleaned their filthy mouths with my pee, and then I proceeded to start fighting him again. You guys so fucking bad. Oh my gosh. Eventually, the rest of my family heard the commotion, came inside, and stopped everything. I felt good about it, y'all. I don't care. My sister was disowned, and he was divorced. Period. But it's okay, because I got my revenge. I couldn't wait on karma for this one. Story time on how I caught my mom cheating on my dad with a woman. Okay, so a quick rundown. At this point, my parents been married for 20 years. They would have little arguments here and there, but nothing out of the ordinary of a regular couple. My dad was a doctor and my mom was a nurse, so my dad worked a lot. But usually when I would come home from school, my mom would be home. Well, this particular day, it was early release, and we all know how that goes. Happy as hell to go home early. Little did I know I was about to walk into some mess, honey. Obviously, my mom wasn't expecting me to be home this early. Well, I opened up that door, and right there on the living room couch, y'all, the position she was in. Oh my gosh. It's the audacity for me. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how I caught my mom cheating on my dad with a woman. So like I said, I came home from school early because it was early release day and my mom wasn't expecting me. I opened up that door and I was literally not expecting anything. But there my mama was. Both legs up, wide open, with a woman eating that cat. My mouth dropped to the floor and I screamed, oh my gosh. My mom jumped off that couch so fast and pushed that woman so hard she fell to the floor. She tried to cover herself with the clothes next to her and said, baby, please, let me talk to you. And the classic, say it with me, it's not what it looks like. Child, I ran to my room and I closed that damn door, like for part 3. Last part on how my mom cheated on my dad with a woman. So they got into an argument after I snitched, and basically my mom was reassuring him how she just wants to be with him and that was just a mistake. The relationship was rocky and on bad terms for about a year, but eventually my parents actually got through it. To be honest, it only worked out because it was a woman. If it was a man, I'm pretty sure my dad would have left. We eventually got over it as a family and I got a little brother. But one thing about it, I will always be traumatized. Story time on how I had a one-night stand with a Postmate delivery man. So I was 17 at the time with a trifling boyfriend. We dated for a year and some months before he decided to cheat on me. And the worst part about it, he cheated on me with my best friend. Long story short, honey, I beat her ass and I cut him off. Not gonna lie, I was traumatized and I got pretty depressed after that. I began eating a lot. Guessing it was a coping mechanism? My mom usually cooked, but when she did it and I was home alone, I just Postmated. I lost my boyfriend, I lost my best friend, I was hungry, and I was sad, so I Postmated some Popeyes. So 10 minutes later, I got the text from Postmates saying Robert will be on his way, and I thought nothing of it. Well, Robert was dropping off more than just food. Apparently, I needed some vitamin D, child. I opened that door, and there he was. It went down, like for part 2. Part 2 on how I had a one-night stand with my Postmate delivery man. So like I said, I opened the door, and there he was. When I tell ya, this man was so fine. He said my name and it was music to my ears, child. And let me just say, this was before the pandemic. Not gonna lie, the Popeyes looked good, but he definitely looked better. So I kind of told him to come in while I looked for money to tip him. He was super respectful and said he'll wait outside, but I insisted. So he came in, I made small talk, he laughed, I smiled, he smiled, and we flirted. So by this time we're heavy flirting and I told him I couldn't find any cash, but that I really wanted to tip him. He smiled and said, oh yeah? I teased him and said, you're not ready. He said, come show me then. I got a little shy and told him to come over to me. He came over to me and stood right in front of me. I melted, and this is when I knew I fucked up. It gets wild. Like for part 3. Part 3 about how I had a one-night stand with my Postmate delivery man. So like I said, I lost my best friend, I lost my boyfriend, and up to this point, I was pretty depressed. But all that went away when Mr. Postmates came right up to my face. Mr. Postmates laughed and said, you're cute. I felt a challenge, so I told him, I'll show you cute. He said, show me then. So I made the first move and I kissed him, and then we did the nasty. He took full control after that, and I'm not gonna lie, when we were done, it was kind of awkward. He left because my mom was gonna be home anytime soon. And I think because everything happened so quick, he forgot to get my phone number. I've never seen him after that. And I'm not gonna lie, I postmated some more so I can see if I can get him again, but I never did. Honestly, I really didn't care because it helped me get over a breakup and a loss of a friendship. So now it's my dirty little secret. Story time on how I slept with my professor in class. So I was 18 at the time and he was 38. To give you guys a visual, he was a little bit on the heavy side and he was balding. Anyways, I don't know about y'all, but I suck at math, so I always needed that extra help. And if you guys were wondering, the class is calculus too. Well, throughout the course, I always stayed after class to ask my professor some questions and he was always willing to help. I always caught flirting here and there, but I always pushed it to the side. Well, one day I stayed after class like usual to ask for help, but something changed. He gave me his credit card and told me to go downstairs to get him something to eat and to also get me whatever I want. I hesitated at first, but he insisted, so I took the free food. That kind of became my routine and I found myself spending more time with him. Mind you, I am literally failing his class each test. But one day before I left, he put his hands on my inner thigh. Then when I stood up to leave, he squeezed my ass, like for part 2.